Do you find that that drive to work hard is literally driving you into the ground? You want to be successful. You want to put your best foot forward, and maybe you only feel like you can do that a few days out of the month. Join me this week as I take a look at that success and hard work paradox, and we pull apart and debunk the myths around what working hard really looks like and how you can thrive as a cyclical being. Early on in my life, I had it in my head that I had to work as hard as my male counterparts in order to be successful. I sprinted as fast as I could in the direction of my goals, brushing off all the signs of fatigue that my body was giving me. I didn't have time to stop, or so I thought. I quickly found that the pedal to the floor pace that I was working so hard to achieve just wasn't sustainable. I started getting sick a lot. My cycle was a mess, and my mental prowess was quickly disappearing. When I learned more about my cycle and how it gave me certain gifts, I was a bit skeptical at first. The idea of stopping during my bleed sounded like the opposite of achievement to me. Once I started planning my work with the phases of my cycle and the strengths that I have in each phase, everything changed. If you want to learn how to be more productive, improve your energy, all while reducing period problems, join me for Cycle Productivity Secrets on October 24th. We will learn how the cycle works, how you can use it to harness your superpowers and feel healthier and more vibrant in the process. Being more productive with less effort sounds like a win to me, right? Join me today. Space is limited. The link is in the show notes. And now, back to the show.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. This week, we are going to be talking about the grind, the work grind. This is going to hit home for a lot of people who are part of Western culture, and I think it's a really important one to talk about. So we have this collective misunderstanding in our culture that in order to be successful, we have to work really hard. And in a lot of cases, we also have to work like men. And, for the purposes of this conversation, I'm talking about assigned at birth, biologically male or female, okay? Not how people identify. I think that it's important to make that distinction because hormones are part of this conversation. So when we're expected to work like men wake up every day. And because they get steady bursts of testosterone in their system, their experience with their day is pretty similar day in and day out. They wake up in the morning, feel pretty similar. The effects of sleep deprivation affect them, of course, but not in the same way that they do for women because of its effects on our hormones. And they just carry on through their day. They are able to work hard. They're able to produce consistently the same way day in and day out. And that is a really difficult standard to be held to when you are a cyclical hormonal being. So, if you have not had a chance to check out earlier episodes of the Reproductive Rebel podcast, this season we talked about what does it mean to be cyclical in episode 8 and not apologizing for being cyclical in episode 9. But now we're really going to kind of bring it all home and talk about how those expectations really do hurt us in the workplace. So in order to be successful, and I know that in saying this, this is going to speak kind of to the heart of people who are Gen Xers, Zennials, Millennials, in that age range. But we were raised with this understanding that in order to be successful, we had to work like men, which means being in spring and summer energy all the time. We are creating, we are producing. We are creating, we are producing. We are harvesting what we have produced. And that energy is not sustainable, especially for a woman's body. Now, I could do an entire show on how it harms men's bodies too. Like, we are a very sedentary culture. We have hugely scary numbers around obesity and type 2 diabetes and circulatory issues. And for men, a lot of cardiovascular issues. I mean, yes, you see them in women too, but we have this unique place that because we bleed, it does change a little bit of the cardiovascular aspect of things, or at least for a period of our lives, it does. But that drive, 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 go, go, go kind of culture permeates everything. And hormonally, men are more built to meet that expectation, but women really are not. So in our culture, we measure success against that go, 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 produce, always being fruitful kind of culture. And it's literally killing us. One thing that I'm really, really passionate about, and I have this course called Cycle Productivity Secrets because I am this person. I was this person, not now, but I was this person. I spent the better part of my 20s trying to prove that I was equally could do everything a man could do and then some. And you know what? I could, but I wasn't doing it in a way that was honoring my body at all. And the harder I worked, the sicker I got. And I didn't see the correlation at the time. So by the time I was 26 years old, I had had a heart attack on birth control due to the birth control. But I really do attribute some of the issues that I was having from a circulatory perspective and other things, digestive, you name it, to the fact that I was pushing my body beyond its hormonal limits. Now, can we work hard? Yes, absolutely. But our energy ebbs and flows because we have more hormones in the choir of what governs our body and helps it do all the things that it's supposed to do. So, all of the players in the women's hormonal profile are follicular stimulating hormone or FSH, luteinizing hormone or LH, progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. And they're all at varying levels at different times all throughout our 28 to 30 day menstrual cycle. I know that there are some exceptions to this when we're talking about birth control. I recognize that there's a large number of you on birth control that are probably listening to this podcast, and that is fine. A lot of this is still applicable to you. But because we have all of these ebbs and flows in our hormones, we don't get them as much with birth control, but we have disruption in our hormones with birth control. So a lot of these principles still apply. We can't be in that spring and summer energy all the time because our bodies just aren't built for that. When we're in our summer phase or right near ovulation in our cycle, we can multitask like a boss. We are oozing with energy and charisma, and our stamina is better, and we can do all kinds of peak workout stuff. And like our bodies are just built for like maximum performance. But as we get closer to our bleed and our body is preparing for this really big thing to happen in our system, it pulls back the reins a little bit because it goes, hey, like I need energy to do this thing over here. And yet, when we work in a culture where we are expected to be in spring and summer energy and we are told that we're not working hard enough if we're not showing up in that way every single day, there's a lot of really unhealthy things that spin out of that. We could do a whole episode and maybe I'll have a professional come on and we'll talk about the mental health side of that because the inner critic gets really loud and starts telling us that we're a failure. We're not doing enough. We're lazy. Does any of that hit home for you? I know it does for me. Just having those words come out of my mouth, I can feel in my body just how true that little inner critic sounds. Because I was raised in a French Catholic family where you were just expected to work hard. Working hard was part of your cultural identity. And it is for a lot of people. But what we start to miss, and what really is a key to success, both with minimizing our period symptoms, but really being healthy into older age, is the fact that our body is essentially inviting us around our bleed to slow down every month. And we ignore all of those signs. So it's kind of like swimming upriver against the current. The current is pushing really strong in one direction and you're trying to swim against it. You get tired. You can't keep up with it. The water just keeps coming. If you turn your body around and you keep swimming with the same gusto, but you are swimming with the current, you're going to go 4 times further faster with a lot less effort. That's what working with your cycle looks like in a woman's body. I created a course called Cycle Productivity Secrets because I hit burnout really hard when I was in my 20s and early 30s. I never was formally diagnosed with adrenal fatigue, but looking back at it, there's no doubt in my mind that's what was going on. I was far more tired than a young woman should be because I am a motivated, productive, intelligent woman who wanted to prove that she was equally as smart and productive and capable as her male counterparts were. And in doing that, drove myself to work harder than my body was really capable of showing up for. And when it screamed at me for rest, I screamed back and told it to sit down and shut up, like so many of us do, because I just wanted to be successful. I had an employer just before I started going into practice for myself. I was working almost 70 hours a week. And I was working before I went into work at a physical position, like physical desk. I was working at home before I went into my desk. I was expected to stay at my desk all of my scheduled hours, even though it took those morning hours in order to be able to do the job well, because there were time zone issues involved. And I got to a point where I had an 18 to 22-day cycle. I was bleeding seemingly all the time. I would bleed for 2 weeks, I would get a little bit of a reprieve, and then it would start all over again. I was exhausted. And the harder I worked, the worse the bleeds got. The harder I worked, the more fatigued I felt. Is any of this landing with you? I hear so many women that come into my practice that have been on the same hamster wheel that I have. And their bodies are showing up and literally clanging a cowbell and screaming at them to slow down. And for the love of God, can you give me the right things in terms of food? Because sometimes when we're working like that, we're not even feeding ourselves properly. We're just go, go, go. And we forget that we didn't eat. I was so guilty of that. And my body told me, hey, this is not sustainable. And we're on the brink of burnout. And I hit that point where I knew that burnout was coming, and I created a plan because, right, you can't just complain to your employer. You have to present them with options, like solutions to the problem. I thought I was being proactive as an employee and somebody who had been a department director at 26 years old, right? I worked really hard to get there and I was in a managerial role. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to create a proactive solution to this problem, but this is a problem and I need somebody above me to help get me the resources and support that I need. I presented my proposal. If we have the resources and I justified the numbers for another person based on what my job was influencing in terms of the bottom line, we could justify another person. And I said, if we're able to get another person, here's what I would give them for duties. This is what can come off of my plate. Here's what it will free me up to do to be able to work maybe 50 hours instead of 70. That's like a part-time person. That's almost a full-time person. If you think that a full-time work week's supposed to be 40 hours, like I created a solution and I said, listen, if we don't have the ability to hire another person for whatever reason, if we were to redistribute some of this or this within the team, it would free me up to do this, this, and this. And I'm still going to be working a lot of hours, but I'm not going to have to work quite as many. And can we maybe look at adjusting my assigned at desk hours so that I can best serve the people I'm trying to serve? And the moral that came out of that meeting, or the story that came out of that meeting, was I wasn't working hard enough and that there were performance issues on my end. Instead of looking at the fact that I was literally doing almost 2 full-time people's worth of work, just trying to prove that I'm as capable as everyone else and I can do everything that my male counterparts can do. And then I'm worth being paid the same amount as my male counterparts. And being told that I wasn't working hard enough shattered my soul. So it hit that identity core. But then I got really angry to think that my body was falling apart and I had two choices. I could run myself into the ground and then not be able to perform the duties of the job at all, or leave because they made it very clear that I wasn't going to get the support that I was looking for. And that was heartbreaking because I liked my job. I liked what I did. I look back at it now and I realize that it was the crisis that my body needed in order to move me into the work that I'm doing now, and why you're all sitting here listening to this episode today. But I think that it's really important to share that part of the story because many of us find ourselves in this position where we're tired and we're working hard and we get to our period and we're not articulate. We get to our period and we're fatigued. We cannot perform the job at the same level. It doesn't mean that we suck as an employee. It doesn't mean that we're not working hard. We're just working within the capacity of what our body can handle in that moment. But give me 5 or 6 days and my capacity grows immensely. So, Cycle Productivity Secrets is my way of sharing with you that you're not crazy. There is a smarter way to work. You don't have to be a victim of the system. And I hate to use the V word, but really, that's how it feels to a lot of us. We are cyclical beings, and at every turn, if you didn't catch the episode about menstrual normativity, which is talking about how we have essentially had this cultural narrative created by the Western medical model and the menstrual health industry about our bleeding bodies, and has fostered a lot of shame around being bleeding bodies. If you're interested in that episode, it's episode 38. But let's take that a step further, and we're going to deepen that shame factor because being a bleeding body makes us less successful and less productive as an employee. I call bullshit. But the thing that is really important to understand is that as a cyclical being, if you learn how to work with your cycle, remember, swimming with the current instead of against it, you're going to be just as successful, if not more so. You're going to have more joy in your life. You're going to have fewer period problems. You're going to be more productive at work because each of the phases of your cycle gives you gifts. Certain phases of your cycle, you're built for planning tasks. Some phases of your cycle, you are very extroverted and you have a lot of energy. And so, networking and presenting and podcast episodes and teaching courses and all of those things, your body is wired for it at that point in time. So, learning what tasks are going to work the best in different phases of your cycle and learning how to track your cycle in a really meaningful way, knowing all of the phases, why they are where they are, what they are doing. You're able to meet your body with your work plan. I know that's a little bit harder when you work for a W-2 employee. I respect that. However, there are little things like you take your lunch break and maybe you go out to your car and you take a 20-minute nap on your bleeding days. You're going to feel more refreshed, or maybe you do yoga nidra in your car on your lunch break. You're going to feel more refreshed when you go in to the office in the afternoon, and it makes it so that you have more stamina for the afternoon. Maybe you dress yourself a little warmer on the days that you know that you are on your period when you go into the office. And maybe you can avoid sitting underneath the air conditioner all day. Like little tiny things like that. If you know what it is that your body needs, you have immense power to be able to change your conditions a little bit, even a little bit makes a huge impact. But when you are able to plan your work, maybe you're scheduling a meeting and it's with the board of directors and you know that you have to give a big presentation. Try to advocate for a date that is closer to ovulation because you're going to be the best version of yourself. That's really what this comes down to. Is it has nothing to do with whether we are equally capable as our male counterparts. It has everything to do with capitalizing on the gifts that our body gives us in each phase. So maybe it just means that our work plan is not the same day in and day out. It looks a little different, but all the same things get done. So, for example, I'm recording a podcast episode right now. Where do you think I am in my cycle? When I'm just before menstruation, I don't know about you, but I get tongue tied. I don't know my ass from my elbow. I have a hard time holding thoughts together in my head. I feel scattered. I trip over my tongue. Sometimes I even bite my tongue trying to be articulate. Like I just can't do it before menstruation. I try, but it's not the best reflection of me, what I know, what I do, because I'm not articulating myself in the way that is most authentic. But catch me in the middle of my cycle. I'll talk to you all day about all kinds of things because I'm so passionate about what it is that I do. So, this is a matter of being the best version of yourself every day of your cycle and being able to produce the best quality work in every phase of your cycle. So maybe closer to menstruation, because I don't know about you, but I feel super introverted. It's normal to feel introverted as you get closer to your bleed. But those are the times that you want to do tasks that are kind of like blinders on a horse. Maybe you are reconciling an Excel spreadsheet and you've been dreading doing it, but you know you have to do it. Save it for menstruation. Because this is one of those things where you can put on headphones, tune out the rest of the world, and just focus on the task at hand. I do my best writing during that time frame. I write magazine articles, I write blogs, anything that I have to write, I write during that time frame. When I have to do strategic planning of any sort, I do it in the luteal phase. My brain is wired for that. When you are, maybe this isn't even like in a workplace setting, but at home, maybe you've been talking to your spouse about the fact that you want to go on this big trip with your family and it's going to require some logistical planning and some budgeting. And can we make the money work? That's the kind of task that you sit down and you create your Excel spreadsheet of this is what all the costs are going to look like to see if we can schedule it. And then let's look at your calendar and my calendar to see a time where we're not going to have any work conflicts. That is the type of task you do during the luteal phase. Your whole life is still getting done. It's just not being done in a linear way. Men work and think in a linear way, point A to point B. My master's is in communication, and one of the things that really struck me is how linear processing men are. Women are verbal, and we see the color and the depth in all kinds of things. And it's the reason why romance novels strike such a chord for a female audience because they're written in this very colorful, rich kind of way that lights up all of the language sensors in our brain. So when we're looking at work, it is not that one gender is superior or inferior. It's the fact that being a cyclical being, we have to plan our work differently. And I actually do some of my work planning for the next month in my luteal phase because I know where my period started. I have a pretty good idea of when it's going to come. I'll go into my calendar and I will put period week in my schedule so that I know that is not a week to overbook myself. And when my amazing, I don't even want to call her an administrative assistant. Honestly, she's a master of the universe. I would be sunk without her. She's incredible. When she goes into my schedule, if she's trying to help me reschedule someone while I'm with people, she will see that note, it's period week, and she knows that I do not have the energy for more than a certain number of people and a certain number of hours in my workday because I just can't show up the way that I want to. I want every person that comes in to do work with me to feel all of my energy and love for them, for the work that I do, the work we're doing together, the enthusiasm for what it is that we're co-creating together. And I can't do that if I can't show up as my best version of myself. So, the one thing I would love for you to take out of this episode is that it's okay to be tired sometimes. It is okay to rest. That your waking state is going to feel and look different every single day of your menstrual month because your hormones are always changing, and that's okay. You need a little more sleep than the average bear. That's okay. There's nothing about any of that that should make you feel shame, make you feel inferior. It really is just a testament to the fact that your body needs different things than testosterone driven bodies do. And that's okay. I have been so much more successful as a professional since I figured that out. And it's one of the reasons why I created Cycle Productivity Secrets, because I am so passionate about helping women not feel like they're failing all the time, like they're tired all the time, that they keep having these period problems, pain, headaches, bloating, all of these things that distract their quality of life, that disrupt their quality of life. When a lot of that can be solved with little tiny lifestyle changes, you would be absolutely amazed at how those little changes make such a profound impact. You have all the tools within you to live your best life. It has become my life's work because I have had all of the period problems, all of the infertility problems. I've literally walked all of the problems that women walk through the door and say, "Can you please help me?" And I started doing this work to become that resource for people where they started looking for answers and they couldn't find them anywhere. So, courses like Cycle Productivity Secrets and coming into Second Spring and, anything that I create in this practice is to help empower you with knowledge and the skills that you need, diet, lifestyle, spiritual practice, all of these things to bring your body into right relationships with itself. Because people who live long and happy, healthy lives have really good diets. They have some sort of a spiritual practice. They have a healthy community that surrounds them and supports them. And they have movement. And so those core tenets is what I build a lot of my work around. Because the whole goal is for you to thrive. And when we try to work against literally the flow of our cycle, and again, definitely check out the cyclical being episodes, because if you don't understand what it means to be a cyclical being, that's a really great place to start. And I had several episodes after that that take you through like a high level what those different stages are in your cycle. So definitely go back and check that out. All free resources to you. Empower yourself with information, because then you can make informed decisions and you can critically think about what it is that feels good to you. what feels aligned to you. There's so many women that come in and they're like, my doctor told me this thing, but like I left the office and I just couldn't shake the feeling that that wasn't the right decision for me, or that that didn't feel aligned for me, or that there was more to it than what they told me. That intuitive feeling is what led me to this work through all of my own struggles as I came through the early stages of my reproductive years. And I look back at it now and I realize just how much would have been changed if I had known then what I know now. So join me on this journey. Keep listening, subscribe, share this podcast with people because we deserve to know this kind of stuff. We deserve better. You deserve better. And you can have all of that when you know how to properly take care of your body. Work is a really big part of our lives. I mean, just think about the pandemic and how many women ended up being the one shouldering the burden of being at home, willingly or unwillingly. My husband and I had that whole discussion at one point where we were like, man, it's really good that I work for myself right now because I would have lost my job trying to juggle Zoom school and everything else with our kids. And I'm really fortunate that I have a super supportive partner and he does everything that he can so that the whole burden isn't on me. But that isn't the case for all of those families. Or it made more sense for whatever reason for mom to be the one that was home, whether it was working from home or leaving her job or, all of those kinds of things. And like we've really lost touch with what our body is telling us we need. And there's a lot of us that don't know what it is that we need in the course of our menstrual month. So take a look at those early episodes of Reproductive Rebel. Definitely check out the course offerings that I have online. I have a beautiful membership program called Body Wisdom that I add information to every month. I have a course called Cycle Productivity Secrets so that you can learn about your cycle and how to plan your workflow with the different phases of your cycle so that you can reduce your period symptoms. You can improve your immune system. You can thrive in your work life. And all of those same tools can be used in your personal life as well. Your body is wired for certain tasks at different times. That puts so much power back into your hands. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode today. I am so passionate about this topic as somebody who watched her body crash and has spent a lot of her life not only building a practice around how to thrive, but repairing her own system. Because I live in this model with you, I worked in this model with you. And now I'm working with the flow of my cycle and not against it. And in my early 40s, I'm healthier than I've ever been in my whole life. But it's because I learned how to do this. And you can too. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist, herbalist, sound healer, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment with Adrienne for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter to get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like us and follow Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.